halfway through that I wanted to give up. Then I just kept pursuing and pursuing. This went on for 12 months. Right? So I learned and breathed this new speech, this new talk, this new TEDx. And then I remember I just thought, they're never gonna come back to me. Right? And then I get an email from Daryl, which is my TEDx coach in California at the time. And he said, hey, Karim, you've been chosen to speak at one of our stages.
Connect Coaching Unplugged.
We're now streaming live on Facebook. Here we have Connect Unplugged number 23 with business hypnotherapist Karim Boktor, streaming in with Callum and myself all the way from Melbourne, Victoria in Australia. Welcome.
Karim, welcome. Thank you for being here. Guys, just to introduce Karim quickly, Karim Boktor and his TEDx talk title, Overcoming Your Inner Stutter. You see, whether we are leaders in business or still in education, we all have an inner stutter, obstacles in our mind holding us back. Karim shares a compelling journey of overcoming his stutter, which held him back and down as a child, to now helping business and community leaders to address their inner stutter. His story of transformation is inspiring, from the boy in the schoolyard with the stutter to now coaching entrepreneurs and business leaders and speaking on stages around the world. We're excited to get into that with you too, Karim. Karim holds an MBA, and after years of coaching entrepreneurs and small business owners, he recognized the biggest problems in business was not the bus, i.e. the business system and processes, but the bus driver. He then undertook further study in formal training in neuro-linguistic programming, as well as hypnotherapy. From this expertise, he developed the Boktor Method with his years of experience, which combines hypnotherapy, business coaching to help each client move forward and to the new levels of success. Buddy, so happy to see you. It's great to have you here. You're a longtime friend of the Connect Coaching team. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. That was a great intro. Appreciate that.
Thanks, buddy. So inner stutter, I can relate to this because I had a young cousin who was struggling with this through the beginning parts of his life. I had a list when I was younger in primary school and had to do speech therapy around that. And I know exactly how it made me feel in the schoolyard. I know how it made me feel amongst my peers at that point in my time. And it had a huge effect on my confidence. Can you tell us a little bit about your story and what that was like for you at a younger age?
Yeah. So we came from Egypt. I was 2. So parents escaped Egypt because they were being persecuted. Dad was a big business guy in Egypt. He had his own business wholesaling petrol. The community around them didn't like that he was earning more money than others because of his faith. So they pretty much told him, hey, if you don't leave Egypt and leave your business, we're going to do some harm. And he's like, yeah, whatever. And then a week or so later, there were literally guys on the street calling out the names of people who they were going to kill. Sort of like a show Bob, right? Like who's going to call out Bart Simpson. I'm not sure if you saw the episode, but it was something
when they all got the pitchforks and the
yeah. It was like, this is like real life. This is Main Street, Egypt. They had the mics and they were calling out names of people who were they going to kill. Just broad daylight, and he was one of them. And they're like, okay, this isn't right. So he had 3 kids. He had his wife, and they just said, stuff this, we're just going to travel to Australia. So we came to Australia, and the person who sent Dad, the person that was meant to send my dad his life savings didn't. So his accountant withheld the money. I think he was trying to keep it or something like this. So Dad quickly found himself in a new country without the language, without a job, and also with no money.
Wow.
Or we were pretty much homeless. We had to live with some family and friends that could squeeze us in, and they were also struggling too. We found ourselves in a housing commission area, and I probably saw things that I shouldn't have seen. Mm-hmm. So I grew up with a lot of stuff, right, that I shouldn't have seen, shouldn't have experienced, just in my surroundings. And then 3 years later, when it came to go to primary school, I found that I had a stutter. Now, the teachers thought that I had just come from Egypt recently, hence why I wasn't speaking. But I wasn't speaking because I didn't want to feel humiliated.
Mhm.
So they assumed that I couldn't speak English, and they put me into a different class, a class where where the kids thought where the dumb people go, where the dumb kids go, which was called ESL, English as a Second Language. But by then all I could speak was English. I didn't remember any Arabic or anything like this. And that really took a toll out of me, because I then believed that I was stupid, I was dumb. The teachers didn't really bother asking me what was wrong, or trying to uncover what was actually happening. They just put me in the too hard basket. I probably had learning difficulties like ADHD, dyslexia, all the and the list goes on. And I didn't have friends because I was the only Egyptian in the class. I was judged. I was the fat kid. I was the stupid kid. And then I realized is that because of my stutter, I couldn't really express myself. I couldn't really tell people how I felt. And that really weighed myself down. But as the journey went on in my life, I realized that it wasn't my stutter, it wasn't my verbal stutter that was holding me back. It was my inner stutter. It was my inner belief that was holding me back, that was allowing me to hesitate to do things that I felt that I was deserving of. So I never felt that I was like the other kids, because we didn't have that money. I was brought up in a lot of scarcity. Sometimes we didn't have money for uniforms. Sometimes we didn't have, enough money for books that I wanted to read. So all these types of things were playing on my mind, that I was never going to be as good or deserving like the other kids. So this is what I talk about, my inner stutter. And this inner stutter then stuck with me for the rest of my life, until I did something about it when I started learning about how the imprint stage really affects your adult life. And this also affected my business later on.
And that led you to here, and that so when you knew that it affected you, what was the next step from there? So being consciously aware of, I know I'm holding myself back. What happened next?
It was a big moment. It was huge. I remember being like so groundbreaking. What happened is that I got into a new business, right? And the first week into this business was the first week that we had our first son. So we settled into a new business at the same week my first child was born. And I thought it was just going to be like, he's getting born, roses and lollipops, and my wife was going to look after him, and I'd come home from work, and it would be, like this dream come true. Little did I know that it felt like a bus had hit me. Right? I didn't know what to expect. It was just like someone had just got a baseball bat and just hit me over the head. My son had colic, and we didn't know. He was waking up every 20 to 30 minutes, and I was turning up to work sleep deprived. And back then I was using sleep as a coping mechanism for my anxiety. And I didn't even know that I had anxiety and depression. And because I wasn't using sleep, people were getting the worst out of me. I couldn't lead my team. I couldn't make the best decisions. And by then as well, I had just finished my MBA.
You just finished your MBA, had a baby. What business were you starting? What industry was it in?
Cafe restaurant.
Cafe restaurant. Oh, I mean, my background's hospitality. Hospitality, especially cafes, that's a lot of hands-on. Lot of hands-on. Yeah, staff members turning in sick, food that doesn't get delivered, chefs who blow their lid off,
Right.
cappuccinos with not enough froth. I've heard it all.
Not hot enough.
Yeah, not hot enough, too hot.
Yeah. So I was dealing with so much. I was dealing with a lot of moving parts. And also we had bought it run down, and I was so confident, right? I'm like, I've run businesses in the past, I'm so cool. I've done my MBA, I had this ego, right? And life literally just put me on my knees and just said, hey, be humble, right? And yeah, slowly but surely, my business started to spiral down further and further. And there was a moment where I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I'm a failure. I'm back to square one where my dad was, 30 years ago when he came with nothing. And I've just done all this in vain. Like he was trying to build up a better life for us. And here I am just failing at what he was trying to help us with. And I remember one day, Alex came home from a walk because she was taking Noah for a walk. And she came home and she found me curled up into a ball, crying hysterically, so anxious. Because I remember thinking I felt so stuck. I couldn't afford to pay rent. I couldn't afford to pay wages. And I felt like this is it. I'm done. I'm a failure as a father. I'm a failure as a husband. I had just left my high-paying corporate job, mentoring and coaching surgeons in surgery.
Right.
What the heck? So I was in my jocks one day, I was just feeling sorry for myself, sitting on the couch. And I remember watching a Tony Robbins thing on Netflix saying, called Up Like a Guru.
I'm not your guru. Yeah.
And it was really speaking to me. And I remember thinking, there must be something right about this guy and what he's doing. He's making so much changes in so little time, and, he's doing the right thing. Like, he must be doing something right. So I Googled, what did Tony Robbins study? And it was NLP.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, okay, so best schools in Australia for NLP. And this was my journey. I remember thinking, and as I was going through this journey of learning NLP, and I think one of the practitioners, it was probably you or Cal or someone else, maybe Brad, there was one question: where is the link between how you're feeling now and your anxiety or depression and your childhood? And it was like this one question. Because I forgot that I was an anxious child, and I forgot how this moment when I was growing up, how chaotic it was, how I was constantly in fear, constantly in fight or fright, constantly getting in trouble by teachers, constantly looking over my shoulders. I didn't, because I thought that I was in trouble or not safe. And it was such an amazing, profound moment. It was like inside of me, my body lit up. I could finally see the mess in the aisles that I had created for myself for such a long time. And it was so liberating because now I can finally clean it up. Because then
on what sort of you unearthed what was sort of simmering underneath the surface. Is that similar to how it felt?
Yeah, it was like I could finally see what my behavior was and how it, like, that was a symptom, right, of me feeling like I was an overweight, balding guy, 30-something guy living at home with my parents before. I was George Costanza with a stutter, right? And it was because I had all these limiting beliefs of me not being deserving, me not being good enough because of that time when I was a child. I had unearthed a lot of these beliefs that I didn't really understand and couldn't connect the dots of where it was coming from.
And then so this is quite a deep story. And then that led you to, you upskilled yourself, and then you sort of realized, hang on, people have options, people have choices, people have an internal stutter. I love the name of that TEDx talk that you delivered.
Yeah. So I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I have just finished my MBA. I probably spent $50,000 to $100,000 learning this. Why didn't they teach us this? Because what happened was while I was training in my NLP and hypnotherapy and Boktor Demartini process, I found that my business started to go up.
Okay.
And I remember thinking, what the hell's going on? Like, why didn't they teach us this then? Why didn't they teach us this in school? And I remember thinking, this is so profound. I went and sold my business, and I went back into studying more about NLP and hypnotherapy, did my master's, did my trainers and all that kind of thing. Not because I wanted to go back and tell the world about what it was more for my own personal development.
Mhm.
I was just so attuned and it just so resonated with me that I wanted to learn more about this thing. Like I was like a sponge. And then it wasn't until when people in business were asking me about business advice, I was giving them the whole vanilla business strategy, do this for your profit margins, do that,
Increase your sales or decrease your profit.
sales, conversion, your Excel spreadsheet isn't done properly,
Yep.
you're not, it's the whole, I remember thinking, why don't I apply some of that stuff that I learned into this? And then I started doing that. And then it was like, people were like, what did you just say? It was so groundbreaking for them. And for me, it was, oh, yeah, this is what it is.
So for the people who are listening who may not know what NLP is or what you said hypnosis and NLP, could you give just a 20-second description of what NLP is?
So NLP, it stands for neuro-linguistic programming. And I like to say that I can change your thoughts with my language, and I can change your language with your thoughts too. But what I also found is that the power of hypnotherapy is that people have like a big barrier, right? It separates the conscious from your subconscious. Now, people sometimes know that they need to go and do this certain thing, but it's not as easy as me telling them, hey, just stop doing this behavior. And just like, they know, it's like, oh, why didn't I think of this before?
Yeah.
So what hypnosis does is it passes through your critical faculty, and I'm able to get through to this big wall that separates from what tells you that you cannot, that you can and you cannot, or your beliefs or your self-talk. And I'm able to get into your subconscious, an area which contributes to 80-90% of your everyday behavior. And I'm able to get in there, and I'm really able to speak to your subconscious. You're able to speak to your own subconscious, and we're able to change the narrative. We're able to change the story so that when you come out, life looks different. That behavior is no longer necessary because we're able to rewire your patterns, essentially.
It makes sense to me, and it makes sense to Cal. Could you give an example? I think I saw a reel that you had on Facebook or Instagram, and it was with a business owner who stopped feeling anger towards something. So his strategy to going out there and selling his product, like him going out there, he had a strategy, a subconscious strategy, right? A strategy means like his steps of the way that he needs to then operate for him to then go out there and sell his services, go out there and meet new clients, right? And it was funny because he never realized this. He had to go through a series of behavior. So part of that, and I'm just going to dumb it down to really simple 1, 2, 3. It was, he needs to feel like he has no money. He then needs to feel angry. So he needs to build up that anger. And then he needs to go out there and find the money. But instead of 3 steps, he had like 10 or 11 steps. And it was really inefficient. So what we did is that if his anger was driving this strategy for him, he felt his strategy of success in business was driven by anger.
Yes.
Is that a roundabout way you could?
Right. Yeah. Once we removed this anger, he felt that he didn't need to go through these 11 steps of anger. His strategy was so much more efficient, and he was just able just to go out and look for the business. And he was so like, he was a big skeptic. He thought, that hypnotherapy was all about,
quack, quack.
I'm going to make it like a chicken. He's going to wake up with no clothes on, right? He's going to wake up with all his money transferred to me, and all that kind of thing that he saw on TV.
Yeah.
So before the hypnosis, I asked him, okay, so you can do this behavior of anger. I was like, yeah, it's like, I can feel it inside of me. And then an hour or 2 later, I asked him to repeat that same process of anger. And he was just like, what the hell did you just do to me? I can't do it again.
Mm.
Where did it go? And that was such a profound moment because people have been thinking about doing business in such a way that this application business is so profound that it's not about your margins. It's not about going to another business coaching thing, where they talk to you about business strategy and, colorful websites and all that kind of thing. It's the problem was never about the bus, right? Which is the business. It was the bus driver. It was him, how he drove the bus. Once we addressed him, everything else ran perfectly better.
Mm.
Just to wrap up the start of the conversation, just with that insight that you've just given us around NLP and looking how you can change people's strategies and looking how you can change someone's mind through the language that you use and have them change their language through the thoughts that they have. How did you change your language so that the stutter was gone? Was it simply that piece of awareness that you made the connection with through looking at your childhood and looking how your anxiety connected back to your childhood, or was there a specific technique that you did, or was it a combination?
Yeah. Great question. Great question. And this is where my journey really began. I remember doing with one of my other another student. It was taught to me. It was called timeline therapy. This was a really amazing tool, and it helped me let go of my previous baggage, all the negative emotions that I held on from the past. Was just gone. And then I'm thinking to myself, I was learning this, and I'm thinking, it can't be this easy. Like, come on, remember, but then as I was going through the process, it was honestly, it felt like a bubble had burst. And when this bubble had burst inside of me, it felt like a massive relief. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it can be that easy. And then I started learning other things because I was so entrenched about learning more human development stuff. So then I learned the Dr. Demartini method.
Mm.
And then I learned hypnosis. And then I kept thinking, oh my gosh, I've got so many tools in my bag. Which one do I choose? And so what I did was I slowly started to integrate all of those things together. And it was a winning formula because I had people coming up and telling me, well, timeline therapy didn't work for me. It's too fast. I've got such a racy mind that I can't just get into that state so quickly. So then I integrated hypnotherapy, right? And then we did this and it worked amazing. And then I integrated the Dr. Demartini process. And that was like the icing on the cake. So then I created, and then I'm thinking, well, who am I to create my own method? But I had to, because I couldn't call it timeline therapy anymore because I wasn't using it the way that it was intended to be used.
Mm.
So I had to change the name. And that's why I called it the Boktor Method.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I think that all coaches and trainers at some point need to evolve into creating their own mechanism, their own modality, their own technique. And that's for different reasons than what you're speaking about now. I feel like that's something that they need to do in order to carve out their position in the marketplace as well, to make them be known under the umbrella of their own work and their own IP. When you sit under somebody else's umbrella for long enough, you turn into them in some way, shape, or form. And what's missed is your unique perspectives and insights and philosophies that, like you said, get integrated and become something completely different. And I think people in the coaching and training space, or and even therapists, should be proud of what they have developed and created through that constant refining of the processes that they use and the results that they get with their clients, because that's how we discover new things. And I think people should be, they should be encouraged and confident to go out and do that stuff. So it's fantastic to see that you've been doing that. Can you share with us a little bit now how from the creation of the Boktor Method led you to be on the TEDx stage. How did that happen? Because that fascinates me. I think
yeah.
TEDx is such a huge brand, and then to have your name next to it with this brand new method, from having a cafe to having your breakdown moment to your breakthrough moment, and then all of a sudden you're on the comeback tour and you're creating this amazing story. Share that with us.
So I honestly remember just sitting down on the couch. I remember getting like an inbox, like a DM, right? And we get them all the time as coaches, right? And we flick through thinking scam, 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 scam. And then one time I got I commented something. This guy from the States was speaking, and I really resonated with his post. And he's like, let your mess become your message. I'm like, that's a pretty cool concept. So I just, commented on his post, and this is awesome, And then he inboxed me. He's like, hey, Karim, blah, blah, blah. I just looked at your page, and I really love what you're doing. He was a TEDx coach, speaking coach. And he's like, have you ever considered becoming a TEDx speaker? And before that time, I loved TED Talks. Like, probably like when, in the early days before it was cool, I was that kid that would be like, oh my gosh, I love these talks.
If you make TED, you're top of your craft.
Right. Okay. And I'm sitting there thinking, this guy's on something. Like, here I am. I'm an ex-stutterer. I'm not a speaker. You don't really know who you're talking to, right? Like, you're talking to the wrong guy here. Like I'm a nobody. This isn't for me. And I remember sitting down with Alex, and what I usually do, this is a pattern of my behavior, is I generally go to something I remember thinking to myself, what's the craziest thing that I can do? Something that I'm so terrified and so crazy of. And I always think about, how can I get there? Like, just for shits and giggles. Like, one of the things that I did was, I was once upon a time afraid of heights. So I thought to myself, what's the craziest thing that I could do, and what am I most terrified of? And I went skydiving twice because of that. The similar thing happened here. I remember thinking, and it started to stew inside of me, TEDx. I'm thinking, is this possible? And then all these things started to come up, like, I can hardly speak, to an audience because of my stutter, because I was so scared and terrified in the past, let alone speaking to an audience, and then speaking to being put up on YouTube for millions to see. And I remember speaking to Alex, and she's like, why don't you just go for it and try it? Like, it's never like, because it wasn't guaranteed either. Like, he would train me, he would coach me up, and then we'll all apply to TEDx to see if, we'll apply to TEDx, and it's really up to them whether they want to bring you on, because they've got such strict guidelines and rules of who they actually.
And I'd imagine they'd have a huge pool of people putting their hand up to be on the stage.
Yeah. So I had to pay this guy a lot of money that it was never guaranteed. And this was in US. It was like thousands and thousands of dollars in USD. And I remember thinking, there is something that's calling me. There is something that's just tapping me on my shoulder and thinking that it's calling me, that I am meant for more on this planet. And I just said, I'm just going to go for it. And I went ahead, and I remember thinking, he was, at the time, he was an ex-NFL football player, right? And he had his own story. And he had 2 million plus views on TEDx. He was 2 times TEDx speaker. And he was an amazing speaker. Like, if I tried getting him now as a speaker, I couldn't afford him anymore. He was so good at his craft that he was really grilling me on this speaking. So I was going through this training process of becoming an international speaker. It was really pushing me. And I remember thinking, I can't do this. Like, it's so difficult. He was really breaking me down, and he was really pushing me. And I remember thinking halfway through that I wanted to give up. Then I just kept pursuing and pursuing. This went on for 12 months.
Wow.
Right? So I learned and breathed this new speech, this new talk, this new TEDx. And then I remember I just thought they're never going to come back to me. Right. And then I get an email from Daryl, which is my TEDx coach in California at the time. And he said, "Hey, Karim, you've been chosen to speak at one of our stages." And I remember at the time I was away in Queensland with my wife, and I remember just thinking, "Hey, Alex, is this real?"
Hey guys, Callum and Connor here from Connect Coaching. I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Unplugged podcast. We're jumping in to let you know about something really exciting, the Forever Client Matrix.
Absolutely. What we love doing is lighting people up and having them realize that their future is bright and, most importantly, making a difference in this world. So we are very excited to be able to share this with you.
If you want to turn every prospect into a forever client, then please click on the link below in the description and get instant access now to your preview of the Forever Client Matrix.
Enjoy.
Like, I just got an email, and I'm getting goosebumps. Like, the hairs are standing up now. I remember this time. It's like, oh my gosh, I've been accepted. And all these things started to come up more, as in like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? Blah, blah, blah. What are we going to do with the kids? Because I had to be away for so long. But the caveat is that it was a virtual event. But even with virtual events, they had all these conditions, that I had to be on stage, and the stage had to be a certain standard and all that kind of thing. So the only thing that I needed to do was to fly over there, because Daryl had access to these stages and he could coach me while I was there just before the talk and all that kind of thing. Like, so I flew down there, and 2 days before the talk, TEDx had contacted Daryl and said, "Hey, we can't use this talk. This talk that I had been training and, training in the shower, training in the toilet, using it on my kids." They said that I could no longer use it because it had references to anxiety and depression. I was trying to tell my story and my experience.
Mhm.
They had strict regulations, but they only told me 2 days before. And this was at like 11 a.m. And up to this point, I had already been in the States for 8 days, living and breathing this. I didn't even leave my hotel room. And what it had come down to was 24 hours, because I had to write a new talk within 24 hours for me to then submit, and then for me to practice for 1 day and then go on stage. And I had a choice. I could either pack up my bags and accept defeat, or in that moment, use all the internal resources that I had learned from all these years of my mindset mastery. And I just said, F it. I was sitting on 1 a.m. in my hotel room, like nearly crying, thinking that, like, there was so much writing on this, right? I already told people that I was doing this. So for me to go back home and say that I was a failure was just not an option.
Mm.
I remember just writing up this new talk that I had to do within 24 hours. And yeah, it was a big success, because what the people got was a better version of me. They didn't get the 12-month-old Kareem.
Mm.
They got a better version of me, which was full of jokes, lightheartedness, more learnings, more wisdom that I was able to share on this stage. And I had so much faith in the universe telling me, Kareem, this is what was needed to happen. And I just surrendered in this moment, and I just said, I'm just going to write it, and I'm just going to say, whatever happens, happens. And this is what had happened. I wrote my TEDx speech in 24 hours.
Wow.
That's almost the name of your next TEDx talk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be cool. That would be really cool.
Yeah.
So
So
I would love to see you do a webinar on that, just for your audience and for our audience, just to explain how you managed to do that in 24 hours. I think that'd be a
Yeah.
great story to share.
Yeah.
So you did the TEDx talk. It went extremely well, and I'd love to include that in the description of this, because we upload this to YouTube after we do it live. So I'd love to include that link in there so people can check it out.
Yeah.
What was next then for you? Because that was I remember going through that journey with you. You talk about story arcs and creating, you know, story timelines. You did a marvelous job with that, bringing all of us along for that journey as well. I think it would have been cool to see a little bit of that drama behind the scenes. You probably weren't ready to share it with everybody at the time. It would have been really cool to, I don't know, it would have been an awesome plot twist to have heard that extra little piece of information at the time. What happened next for you? Because it just seems like now you're everywhere and you're doing all these amazing things all over Australia, and you're at all of these amazing business networking events and rubbing shoulders and doing interviews with a lot of great people, and you've got some really clever marketing ads and stuff out at the moment, which I think are genius in the way that you've produced those. You know, you see a lot of stuff out there that I don't feel like I connect with, but when I see your stuff, it's really powerful, because I feel like you did one of the things you said about the last 24 hours before you did your TEDx talk was you brought the real Kareem in, you created some humor, there were some jokes, and it was lighthearted. I feel like these ads, even though they're talking about a serious topic and you're talking about a serious industry, you're talking about corporates, you're talking about, you know, all of these people who are huge decision makers that you're working with, but you've managed to distill the message that you need to get across to them down in a professional way, but also in a way that is a little bit more lighthearted and fun. Tell us a little bit about that next phase and how that came about.
So I came back and I thought like I think like what most people think is that once you have TEDx, you're like, you know, you've made it, right? Where you've like, you know, you're doing all these things and like people are asking you to come on, you know, speaking and all that kind of thing. But with my experience and from everyone else that I've spoken to, it was crickets, right? It doesn't work that way. So then I had to quickly think, oh my gosh, I've got to keep up the momentum. Like I've gone all in now. I can't go back. Right? I've come too far. I can't just leave this. And I think this was when everything just started happening. I went all in on marketing. I think this was, as coaches or as consultants, we think that our knowledge is all we need. But then I came to realize is that marketing and sales was one of the most important things that we need as business owners. And I remember thinking, okay, well, I've got to use this now as leverage. Like I've got to say, okay, well, now that I've got this, I've got to really use this, and no one else is going to do it for me. I'll have to do it, right? So I was constantly at cause, and I was constantly trying to be in control of my own destiny. So I went out and I started to ask people, you know, like, I'd love to be on your podcast. I'd love to talk about this, and I'd love to talk about that. And then I started to tweak my message, and it started to resonate with people. And then I started thinking, oh, hang on, what if I turn this into a paid ad? Because people were just scrolling through and thinking, oh, just another ad, just another ad. I really wanted to cut people and really understand, really speak to what people were telling me what their problems were. Like I was literally just going through and say, okay, well, so many people are talking to me about procrastination, right? They've read Atomic Habits, they've read the book, they've gone to Tony Robbins, and you know, they're hyped up, but 2 weeks later, they're back into the same pattern of behavior and nothing changes, right? And they've got these invoices that, you know, people are, you know, they've got businesses coming, they've got businesses, right? They've got people that are wanting to do business with them, but all they're not doing is just sending out the invoice. Like it's free money, right? But there's obviously like limiting belief around money and being deserving. So then I just started narrowing down and really being specific about a specific message. And I just started doing ad, and I just started doing more of these, putting myself out there. And I think I assumed that I didn't know enough getting into this. And the more and more people that I spoke to in business, I had elevated them. So I had minimized myself and put them on a pedestal, you know, these CEOs and these founders, thinking that I didn't know enough, and who am I to speak to them? But the more and more that I spoke to them, that I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you don't know this? Like this for me is like so fundamental in what I've learned around human behavior and, you know, NLP, hypnotherapy, and the psychology behind it. that I then built up so much confidence in me by having more of these conversations.
Mm.
So then I just put myself more and more out there. And I remember thinking, you know, I've got this confidence now because I know that people need this. And the more and more that I come into and have these breakthroughs with people, my Boktor method, people are thinking people are telling me, Karim, I needed you 2 years ago. Where were you?
Mm.
And I think this part of my driver is that I don't want this person who is suffering or, you know, going at this alone. When I've got this really cool tool to help them, I need to do better in marketing and sales. I need to do my job better to get to them because they don't need to go through this stuckness. They don't need to go through this old behavior and feeling like crap. I've got a tool to help them with. So it was like, it's my duty to do better at sales and marketing. And bringing all my sales experience, you know, when I was in surgery and with doctors, selling them in that moment when they were having people open, I remember thinking to myself, I can use life has given me the gift of selling.
Mm.
And it's given me the gift of learning this really cool thing like NLP and hypnotherapy and, you know, Dr. DeMartini process, that sales, the psychology of sales really was the thing that I needed to bring this to life. And then I remember seeing you guys talking about the psychology of sales.
Mm.
And that really resonated with me.
Yeah.
And yeah.
We've I think many years ago when I first got into this industry, the learning you got about, I need to communicate more effectively so that they fully appreciate and understand the value I can offer them. And I'm seeing someone run strategies in their life, in their business, that I know it's like seeing someone with a bucket with a hole in it and you have some tape and you're trying to sell someone to buy your tape so you can plug up that hole. If they don't know what tape is, you have to sell the tape. You have to sell them and the value and the benefits of being able to walk around with a full bucket now.
Yes.
And you know, I liken I guess, wellness coaching industry similar to the health and fitness industry. 100 years ago, there were no gyms. And then maybe 50 years ago, actually, no, I'm probably getting older now. In the 50s, they probably had gyms, but only a select few people would go there. Anyway, now there's a gym on every corner. In the 80s in Australia, it was the saying was there's a pub on every corner. Now there's literally a gym on every single corner in Australia. And where did I go recently? Where were we? I was in New Zealand. I was in Hamilton, which is a small town in the middle of the North Island, a little bit north, but you know, fairly central. And there was literally just gyms everywhere. You have your UFC gym, you have your CrossFit gym, you have your women's only gym, you have your you know, strength gym, and there were gyms everywhere. Anyway, what has happened with the health and fitness industry is that it's become such an ingrained functioning part of our society now that it's just everywhere. It seems normal. It's not an exclusive thing anymore. Everyone does it. And I really feel that where we are now with the coaching world and the value it can bring to people's lives, we're still gathering that momentum towards it being completely accepted and completely a go-to resource for everyone who knows that they want to improve. And until we get there, it relies on people like us in order to sell the value of it, and the people getting the results, because none of this would happen unless people got the results. I certainly wouldn't have certainty and confidence in myself to sell something that I know didn't work. And because I know it works, I had absolute faith and certainty myself in how I communicated. But most importantly, it was transferring that belief across to the person I was communicating with so that they bought into my belief about them. And then when you hear and you see change and success story, change and success story, change and success story over and over again, the neurology within you is that it's undeniable, and therefore it becomes just an absolute belief that if you apply what you're meant to, you will get the results in your life. And then it's how effectively can I communicate that to someone who wants to improve themselves.
Yeah.
And that's the psychology of it. Is you know, sales is communication and change. That's
Yeah.
it. You got to communicate. You got to change their thinking about what on earth you're trying to sell. And if you can do that effectively, they take the action.
That's really powerful what you just said, and you've got a really great diagram kind of that you use, a really simple one, where it just says state, behavior, results, and you talk a lot about certainty and congruency through that flip chart that you do.
Would you like me to show it to you?
Yeah, do it.
Well,
It's probably back here.
and I've learned that no one is really teaching this. Like I've been in like top industries like pharma, where they pump millions of dollars into sales training. And I've been in medical devices where they pump even more money into sales training. But no one is actually teaching this.
Yeah.
It's so profound, and this is amazing. So if you guys can just learn this, it will change. It's a game changer.
100%. I was talking with a corporate sales client, and he does pitches, big presentation pitches to boards and board of directors. And the archetype of the male in a suit made him feel less than. So the results he would have in those boardrooms were very different because his state was very different. So your state, well, this is directly taken from NLP. Your state produces your behavior. Your behavior over time produces your results. If your head's out of whack this way, then your behavior is going to be out of whack, and therefore your results will be. And over the years, and it was actually with a podcast with a good friend of ours called Pierre, who also studied NLP coaching, and now is a high-end elite level coach in the US, and has done incredibly well for himself. We came to the realization that in order to have that state control in sales and in business, you need to have clarity. You have to have clarity on what you're doing. If it's foggy, your projections are going to be foggy. Your articulation is going to be foggy. Your actions are going to be foggy. You have to have that mental clarity in order to have that absolute powerful state. Then you need to have a level of, this word here is congruence. You have to be congruent in your behavior. If you're selling and you're in business and you don't believe the words that are coming out of your mouth, the person you're talking with is going to say, that sounds good, Karim. Can you send me an email? That sounds, I'll think about it. They're not going to believe you because you don't have congruency and conviction in the words that you say and the behavior that you produce. And then obviously in business and in life, but obviously our application is in business, because I feel, Cal and I feel, that if we can teach someone create a profitable business, a sustainable, profitable business, even though they may have to get out of their comfort zone quite a bit in order to get there, if we can help someone, provide someone a lucrative career in business, their lifestyle will improve tremendously. And it means that one key area of their life, they have that certainty in. And that's exactly, ultimately, COVID was one of the best and worst things, as everyone says. But in our teams, we thrived during COVID because literally every single day there was another headline saying, this is now happening. Here are the goalposts. We've moved the goalposts. We've moved the goalposts. We've moved the goalposts. And we went, what are we going to do? But one thing that we drilled in with our teams, Cal and I, is that it was the certainty. It doesn't matter whatever is happening out there. If we don't maintain our certainty within ourselves, we are going to be another plankton in the current of the sea that's just aimlessly going, another jellyfish in the sea with all the other jellyfish going with the current. We have to go against the current, and that's certainty in ourselves and our business.
The powerful thing that happened when I think the initial conversation, I remember when it happened, I was in the US and COVID had just sort of hit. We heard whispers of it in December. I'd flown over in January, I believe at the end of January, maybe it was in February, to do a hypnosis training in Las Vegas.
In Vegas.
I Connor called me on the way home and he goes, what's it like over there? Because it seemed like it was kind of hitting over there more. And I was like, mate, I'm at LAX and the airport is dead. There's no one here. You know what I mean? So we put our heads together on that call and we decided that we were going to go all in on certainty. We're going to go all in on certainty with the team, and we were going to just go day by day, creating as much certainty as possible for us initially, and then with the team. And then what eventually happened, as those kind of said, the broadcasts and the headlines started to roll in, all of our clients started to call us. And we almost became like this emergency hub where everyone, the phones were ringing off the hook, and they're like, what's going to happen in this case? What's going to happen in this case? And what they were talking about was, am I still going to be able to practice with my clients? How am I going to be able to practice with my clients? Am I still meeting the requirements? Am I still making sure that these standards are met? All those sorts of things. And we were just finding solution after solution after solution. And we were only finding those solutions. And I put a post up today about, if you believe it's going to work out, you'll see opportunities. And that's what we wholeheartedly believed. We believed that it was going to work out, and we just worked day by day finding those solutions. And what eventually happened is that certainty rippled out into our entire community, and it rippled out into all of our clients, and everybody shifted and adapted. And in fact, everyone in our space ended up having some of their best years
Yes.
that year and the following year, which was remarkable. And I believe that we were really lucky to be well positioned in that. But it stemmed not from the external world, it stemmed from the internal world. And I did a talk on this the other night under a different umbrella, under a different topic, but it all starts from within. Carl Jung says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life, and you'll call it fate. You'll just think that that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, that all occurs at the unconscious level with the filters that we distort, delete, and generalize our reality by. We have all of this information coming in every minute, every second, and we're deleting, distorting, and generalizing based on how our filters are set up. And that's why it was so important what you said about your childhood and the connection you made, because you had certain filters that you either accepted or rejected through that time period, which set up your current reality in the way that you interpreted the incoming information, in the way that you rejected some of that incoming information to perceive it in the way that you did. And that all shifted for you in a quick minute. And that's what we had set up in the office through that 2020 period and beyond, was making sure that the filters that we had individually first, Connor and myself, and then the ones that we helped our team set up for them, just made everything rock solid. When they had those incoming conversations, people had uncertainty, they had anxiety, they had nervousness, they had so much, they weren't clear on what the future held for them. We became these beacons of clarity for them. We became these beacons of certainty for them, these beacons of congruence for them. And it just settled everybody down. And it gave them clarity that the future is bright, and there were going to be many opportunities for them. And that turned into great business. It turned into great sales calls, it turned into great business calls. And I think it was the antidote for the time, because no one had certainty, no one had clarity, no one had congruence, and we did. And that was what attracted everybody to us at the time. So I think that is an incredibly powerful flip chart piece of paper. It looks so simple. And if you just move to one side for a second, Connor, it's clarity plus congruence equals certainty and results. So clarity of your state, congruence in your behavior equals certainty in your results. So that's, I guess that gets the ball rolling with the whole idea of psychology and sales psychology in business.
Absolutely. Two of my favorite quotes at the moment is, one of them is Henry Ford, and he said, if you think things are going against you, don't worry about it. The plane takes off against the wind, not with it. So during COVID, the wind was blowing this way, and we were literally going against the grain. But it actually grew our neurology. Now I'm thankful for it. At the time, it was like, I know we have to do this, but I have to lock onto this and keep this certainty going. And the other one is Abraham Lincoln, and he said, if you give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'll spend the first 4 hours sharpening my axe. And I teach that in the corporate trainings and our public trainings. I teach that because the majority, it's not the words you say. It's not the pausing after you give don't talk after the close. Someone's already made their mind up if they're going to buy earlier on. All these little techniques, you got your little one there, Karim. All these little techniques are great. I'm not dissing them at all, but it's so many people put the emphasis on the bus, as you say, And the real value is actually the person behind it, the person driving it. And as we know, there are various studies that have been done, and the majority are overwhelmingly the same. And that is the words we use, the actual words we use, only form a small amount of our communication. The majority of our communication are other factors such as verbal and non-verbal communication, how we move our hands, the inflection in our voice, the speed at which we talk, the eyebrows as we as we say certain words. All of that combined is actually more effective than the words that we use. And if you can harness that, the psychology of how we communicate, man, your sales go through the roof. Go through the roof. Because you have this level of this air of certainty and clarity and congruence in your behavior that people love to buy from certain people. They just love it. I mean, there are people that I don't want to buy from because I just feel like they don't have my best interest at heart. But there are others who are like, this is an average product, but I really like you and I'm going to invest in you. And there are other people who are like, this is a top product. It's a little bit out of my price range, but I trust you wholeheartedly and I really believe what you're saying. And I like the way you make me feel about purchasing this. And they go ahead and purchase. And people find the resources they need to invest in anything that they want, is a belief that I have. Anyway, there's lots. In fact, I could spend 2 days teaching this.
Yeah. Well, why don't we teach? Why don't we do like a masterclass, a sales masterclass on this? Why don't you guys come on and we can teach
All right.
this?
I'll. What are your thoughts, Cal? Shall we?
Well,
I've already made my mind up.
I'm always keen to share this with more people. I feel like this is something that we're all passionate about. I think it really fits in with what you're doing as well, working in business, because it's like once you get yourself right, then like you said, the business can take care of itself. It's not the bus, it's the bus driver. And I feel like we come at that from a slightly different angle, but I think it complements what you do very well.
Absolutely, 100%.
Sure, we'd be happy to put on a masterclass for you guys.
Yeah, in fact, in our trainings, I talk about the psychology. There are 4 main psychological phenomena that we use in sales. And I've done some research and I have another 4, actually, more psychological phenomena. And when you can apply them and learn them, again, your communication just goes through the roof. And if you can communicate more effectively, then you can articulate what you have in a way that matches the other person's model of the world. And if they start to see the value that you see in your product or service, the trick is to get them to see the value in the same light as you do. Because, by the way, you should think that what you have is absolutely priceless. And when you can have someone else see it as that way, then it's just the next step. Phase 3.
You must see it as being priceless so that the other people can see it as being priceless, because it starts with you.
100%.
Awesome. I'm excited. How
does this work for you? How can we put this together for you? What does this look like? Because
let's just ask the people, let's pick a day. Let's ask the people, let's get them to jump on. It can be free of charge, just like a 1 hour, 2 hour masterclass, psychology of sales.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly believe in this so much. As I was saying, I was in industries where they would spend millions and millions of dollars on the sales force, and we would never even learn this. So this is a game changer for a lot of businesses, and there's nothing to lose. Come learn this. It's mind blowing. I guarantee it. It's going to change your business. A lot of the times what holds people back is their ability to connect to the sales process.
Yes.
And their ability to connect also to the other side. And learning this is going to be a game changer for so many people.
When
Beautiful.
you understand your own psychology, you understand the psychology of the people you're talking to better.
Yes.
And it's again a totally different topic that I was teaching the other night, but we talk about the conscious mind being the instrument by which we create our experience outside of us. And if we're in charge of our conscious mind, our psychology, then we can create different outcomes for us and the people around us very, very quickly. And this is never demonstrated as well as it is demonstrated when you apply the science. So very excited about that.
I'm excited. Let's
Good. Well, Karim, founder of the Karim or the Boktor Method, It's been an absolute pleasure having you. It's really nice to see someone who is creating a new blue ocean in business and being a business hypnotherapist. I don't think I've met anyone who's held that title. Probably a lot of people have held that title, but they haven't actually labeled it in public. It's been a behind the curtain type of title. But you've just gone with it, and I think that takes a bit of guts, because it's a brand new name. Hypnotherapy and hypnotherapists, in some circles, it has a level of unknown and therefore preconceived ideas and attitudes that people make up in their head that are true for them but may not be absolute truth. And your job is to educate them, and having that as your title, I think you're going to absolutely change the industry. So good for you, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, look, I think that the world's ready for it. I watched Billions a few years ago on a flight over to LA. Have you watched Billions? And there was Wendy Rhodes.
Wendy.
Yeah, have you seen that?
So my title used to be on LinkedIn. I'm like Wendy,
Oh, really?
less hot with more trip.
Yeah, because that movie, that TV series really sort of brought it into the zeitgeist of everybody's awareness of, wait a second, are these big, hedge fund companies doing something behind the scenes that are giving them this edge, and they absolutely are. And in fact, it's become so popular in sports. I think the natural progression is for it to spill over into business.
Yeah.
And back in 2018, we had I trained a young guy, young, same age as me, in hypnosis, and he quickly got involved in the UFC and the NFL, and was working with the highest level sporting guys over there. He's shifted slightly in what he's doing. He still works with those guys, but he's doing a lot of public facing stuff now with business. So it just goes to show that there is it is happening, and he doesn't hide behind any other name either. He calls himself Dom the Hypnotist. You call yourself a business hypnotist. I think it's time that people just step through the veil and just say this is what's next. This is the latest and greatest, and change the world.
Magic. All right, team. Thank you, Facebook. Thank you, viewers. Thank you, to our community. YouTube. I will unplug now, and Karim, stay on, and we'll have a brief chat.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me. And yeah, let's bring this
Let's go.
whole light, and yeah, let's change the world.
Sounds good.
Thank
See
you.
you soon.
Hey guys, Callum and Connor here from Connect Coaching. I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Unplugged podcast. We're jumping in to let you know about something really exciting. If you are a practitioner, a coach, or a trainer in the alternative therapy modality space, the Forever Client Matrix is something that we've modeled in the last 30 combined years, both Connor and my experience. And we've turned it into a 2-day intensive, and we want to give you a preview of that Forever Client Matrix.
Absolutely.
We want to make the bar for them to enter into that program very, very low, and have them get incredible results.
I've sold about $40 million worth, and together we've sold about $100 million worth with our teams.
That's right. We believe that trust and reliability is the currency of the future. So if you want to turn every transaction into a transformational experience, if you want to turn every prospect into a forever client, then please click on the link below in the description and get instant access now to your preview of the Forever Client Matrix.
Enjoy.